I want to bring in congressional reporter for Axios, Kate Santaliz. She has been all over these stories. I want to start with your new reporting on Tony Gonzales, because I do think that it was surprising to see that he announced his exit, and yet it also felt like the writing was on the wall.
Right. I mean, having these two members both resign within minutes of each other last night was really an unprecedented event here.
Yeah.
They're both facing allegations of sexual misconduct, sexual assault for Representative Eric Swalwell. And at the same time, after the allegations against Swalwell came out on Friday, we sort of saw this movement to expel not just these two lawmakers, but other lawmakers in the House. That was from Representative Ana Paulina Luna and the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Teresa Ledger Fernandez. They both indicated that they were going to introduce those resolutions today in the House. And the two representatives, Swalwell and Gonzales, they beat them to the punch there. So, yes, by resigning, they're avoiding this expulsion vote on the House floor, and they're also avoiding a House Ethics Committee investigation. Yep. You know, former members, they don't typically have their ethics findings released to the public, and this is something that they're going to avoid here. We obviously saw that precedent broken with Representative Matt Gaetz. He was up for Attorney General at the time, so that was a little bit of a different scenario, but it's not really clear what else we're going to see from Congress on the front of these two lawmakers. But lawmakers still kind of want a clean house here, and there are other members that they're looking at. There are other members that they're looking at because initially when we were going into the weekend, it looked like it might be a batch of 4 expulsions, notably 2 members from each side of the aisle. And it ends up being important in a way that only Washington can be this grossly political, that these members seem willing to expel some of their own when it doesn't actually change the balance of power in the House. Right, right. And I think there's something that just feels kind of icky about that. For sure. I mean, House Speaker Mike Johnson, he has some of the tightest margins in history. He can only afford to lose 2 votes right now. He's swearing in another member today. And Swalwell and Gonzales both leaving doesn't change the balance of power, like you said. So, I mean, if you lose 2 Republicans on a vote, if a few people are absent, it could tank legislation. And that's not something that Speaker Mike Johnson wants. So we're going to have to see what happens with these 2 other members. In the case of Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, yes, that seems like more members may be willing to take that step and expel her there once the ethics process is complete. Representative Greg Steube, who's been leading that charge on expulsion, told me yesterday he's going to file that motion to expel her the week after her ethics hearing next week. So that's something that could pick up 2/3. Members could argue that the due process has been done there. It's easier to justify that. But for Republican Representative Corey Mills, he's in the ethics process. As you know, it's a notoriously secret committee, so we don't know how far along they are in that process. But it could be a little bit harder for members to justify expelling him there without due process. So basically, we could see these 2 exits now that don't change the balance of power. And then we could see a few weeks from now the idea of expulsion come up again, potentially, for these 2 Florida members, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican? Yes, that's exactly right. And then I also wonder the way that Johnson himself has been talking about this, because he is notoriously no fan of expelling members. He says that it undoes the will of the voters, and yet voters had none of this information at their disposal when they first elected these people. Right. I mean, and that's a long-held stance that he had. We saw that during George Santos. He didn't want to expel George Santos at this time. He's always said that due process is required here. When it came to Swalwell before he resigned yesterday, it sounded like from the Speaker's office that he was not inclined to vote to expel him, even though it was a Democrat. So it's a little bit nonpartisan here, his stance on this. So it's an interesting way to see that how that stance has aged and how it hasn't changed, especially as we've seen a lot of members, as margins have gotten tighter, sort of compromise long-held positions so that the majority party can get to where they're trying to go. Right. I will also say it's just been the bravery that it has taken on the part of these women to come forward and share their experiences in all of the instances that we are talking about is just absolutely stunning. And I think I think of them often throughout this entire process, and I hope that these exits give them at least some sense of accountability. But I think on the legal front, we're also going to watch to see where things go, especially when it comes to Swalwell. Congressional reporter for Axios, Kate Santaliz, thank you. And her latest reporting is available to read online right now. She's an excellent reporter. You're going to want to read all of her stuff.